Happy Memorial Day, a very important holiday. Again, we appreciate you guys that join us today, but we want to give a special thank you to our military veterans, those who lost their life in the ultimate sacrifice. Again, we do not take that for granted. To me, this is the most important holiday of the year. So I'm going to start the show off by just saying thank you, paying tribute to those, along with those of you that are active duty military, retired military, and along with our first responders, our folks that are out keeping us safe. This is a really kind of crazy weekend. So our police officers, firefighters that are out keeping us safe right now. Just want to say thank you. Again, Memorial Day is the most important holiday in my opinion, and I just want to say thank you to all of you that have had to endure a sacrifice or have family members of sacrifice. Again, I have a ton of family that fought in the world wars in Korea, and again, it's something that I'm very proud of. They are the ultimate heroes, and I just wanted to say thank you as we get into the show. Again, if you guys enjoy our show, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, we are going to get into a lot of Michigan stuff. Again, we are 2 weeks out from the kickoff, so it's going to be amazing. The intel that is going to be coming in. Has there been a massive change in the media and their perception of it? There has been. We're going to talk a little about the Jim Tressel resignment. Obviously, that was on Memorial Day a while ago. It was 2011. It seems like yesterday, but it was 14 years ago. I got to talk to Nevada about where he was when he got the news. Again, I was working there. I kind of went through my story on Saturday, but we're gonna have him kind of tell his side of the tale, and we're gonna take your questions as well. So please continue to pay it forward. Again, pay it forward goes. Our super chat's going to pay it forward. Again, our active military folks are eligible for a BuckeyeScoop.com membership. We've signed a bunch of you guys up this week. We appreciate you guys so much. Email buckeyescoop@gmail.com if you have questions about your eligibility, and we will get you all squared away. With that being said, got to bring in my good friend Nevadabuck. Nevada, obviously, with your father being in the Air Force and you being kind of a military brat, as a young kid, I'll give you a moment to tell the audience a little bit about what Memorial Day means to you before we get into some of the Michigan news.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a special holiday. It's funny because when you grow up a military, Air Force brat, and you live around the world, you don't really realize that everybody isn't a military brat. You know what I'm saying? Because you're surrounded, you're on bases and you're around around the world with other, military dependents, and you just kind of feel like everybody kind of gets it, but but they don't, and so I think I've got a kind of I guess a unique perspective, but it certainly didn't feel unique growing up. It was like everybody was super patriotic. Everybody was, super into, supporting the flag and, patriotic causes, and always felt that certain, that service in the military was, one of the best things you can do. So yeah, today's definitely a special day. I never served in the military. I do not know where the people summon up the courage to do the things that they do that do serve in the military. So it's yeah, definitely the most important holiday of the year in our family for sure, and definitely a solemn day around the Nevada Buck household.
Yeah, I again, we just like to give thanks and tribute to our military. Again, we do it a lot. We do it basically almost every day on the show, but we just want to say a special thank you on Memorial Day. So, Nevada, we're going to get into the show now with some of the Michigan stuff that has been cropping up, and the turn of the media has been pretty stark recently. Again, it's like they're all starting to clue in on what we've been telling them for, I don't know, like almost 18 months now. But talk a little bit about what you've seen, because there's a little bit more fervor. And it is interesting because I lived through the Michigan, or excuse me, the Jim Tressel tattoo gate thing, and like I didn't feel the bloodlust. There's not the bloodlust that there was during that for whatever reason, but it's starting to heat up right now because again, with the amount of cheating that they did and how they've acted since it's all gone down, it's been heinous, and I think people are getting included to that. What have you noticed in terms of the change in tenor from the media locally, nationally, Michigan beat, Ohio State beat? What have you noticed?
Well, on all these things, you just have to understand the narrative, and I think, the Jim Tressel thing, there was a certain narrative that was kind of put out there about, the good man gone bad, and the sweater vest wearing guy that did evil things, and the media wanted to kind of condemn him, and that was the story that they were telling. The Michigan State thing, now has its own narrative because Michigan State now is kind of embroiled in their own scandal, and that one's interesting because you can't help but think that what's kind of driven that, all that was all self-reported by Michigan State, um, was maybe an effort to improve their position in their lawsuit over that terrible contract that they signed with Mel Tucker. You know what I'm saying? Like is that something that helps them escape financial liability in terms of that. So, that one's got its own narrative. And then the Michigan one had kind of started where I don't think people could really kind of get their arms around what was going on. And I think they were conflating a lot of issues. They were conflating, the recruiting violations. They were conflating the NIL stuff that was going on with the NCAA. And so you had some of the spokespeople for national media, namely, guys like Joel Klatt, Josh Pate, Mike Farrell, the ESPN guys, all kind of came out, and the kind of the consensus was, Michigan is too big of a brand. They can't punish the brand. College football's too important, and or Jim Harbaugh would never do something like this. And it's been interesting because I said at the time, I said, watch it. It'll stay like this until it gets close to the time, and then when people start digging into it and they start seeing this, it's all going to turn. And I used the phrase, I said a little at first and then all at once. Well, we're kind of getting into the all at once phase right now with Michigan because all the national media is starting to turn against them. And even Joel Klatt and even Josh Pate have complete now they're claiming they haven't changed their position, and it's kind of entertaining to listen to them talk about how they haven't changed their position when their positions changed so dramatically right now because they know what's coming. I think everybody now, when you talk to people in the agent community, when you talk to people in college football, when you talk to people in administration, they all realize what's coming for Michigan. So they've all got to change their position so they can claim victory when it happens, because you can't no one wants to be on the island of nothing's going to happen to Michigan right now when everything's going to happen and you're going to look completely foolish. And so even some of the fat, disgusting guys in the Ohio State beat and some of the people, the others, right? I mean, some of those guys are kind of changing their tunes now about it because they realize that no matter how much they're, wishing and hoping that the hammer doesn't fall on Michigan, that it's falling. And so for the Michigan faithful, they were just hoping that this thing would go away, and they hated it for months and months when we'd hammer them on social media, when we hammer shows, and we'd get thousands and thousands of comments of, why can't you just leave this alone? Why do you have to keep talking about this? Can you please stop talking about this? And it was really just kind of, it was their hope that they could just kind of run off into the night. This thing would kind of slip and slide away. They got their national championship, and Jim Harbaugh was gone, Jesse Minter was gone, those guys were gone. Can we just forget about all this stuff? And they didn't realize that all along that the sword of Damocles was hanging over their head, and the NCAA was just waiting out their time, going through their due process, following their policies and procedures, and waiting for the hammer to drop on them. And we're kind of at the hammer drop phase. So, yeah, the national media. Watched a podcast from Joel Klatt just a couple hours ago. I watched one from Josh Pate as well, and they're all coming around to, no, there's going to be bad thing. Now, there's a debate in there in terms of what the bad things are going to be. And it's funny how some people feel like the worst things that can happen is to take away their legacy, is the vacated wins. The vacated wins, the potential non-recognition of the Big Ten titles, the non-recognition of the NCAA championship in 2023. To some people, that is like that's the ultimate hammer. And it's funny because other people will argue with a straight face that anything going backwards is meaningless. Absolutely, it means nothing. The games were played, they saw the games, they have the memories, means nothing. That's just for the Ohio State stands that are just out there and trying to erase the thing like a Men in Black memory eraser. But to them, it's only about go forward stuff. It's only about perspective postseason bans. That's the only thing that's meaningful. So you've kind of got these two camps that are kind of drawn right there. So you know, now I feel like the ultimate punishment is going to involve both of those things. I think it's going to involve vacated wins as well as postseason bans. But it's funny how some people have kind of turned themselves into a knot, say because they feel like no matter what would happen to them, if it didn't involve one or those things or the other, that this was a nothing punishment. Like someone, if you gave them a 2 year postseason ban going forward, that's nothing. That means absolutely nothing. And I'm like, that would cost them every top recruit. That would cost them all their NIL money would dry up, probably cost them most of their coaching staff. And but some people just feel like that's a nothing burger. And so I'm really intrigued to see how, I think with the national media right now, everybody knows that something's going to happen. There's a split in terms of what they think is going to happen, but it's gone past nothing. It's gone, we're into the point right now where the best argument that they can come up with is, well, you don't want to punish the kids, you don't want to punish the guys that weren't there, or is that really fair to do that type of stuff. But that doesn't get away from the stripping of titles going backwards. So I kind of feel like at the end of the day that it just this the punishment's going to be what it's going to be, and I think people are going to see it through their own lens. And even no matter what comes down, the most ardent Michigan fans are going to argue that it was nothing, that it was worth it because they got to see the games or whatever it was, and others will feel like they got away with a slap on the wrist. But that's what I think is going to that makes made this case so interesting, so unique, and it's really it kind of presents such a unique challenge for the NCAA. Is how do you punish something that's never been done before, and how do you make it fair and unfair to Michigan, fair to everybody else, and kind of get justice. And that's really the conundrum.
Yeah, I think it's silly when people say that vacating titles and wins don't mean anything, because I was literally part of a team that had the season vacated, the 2010 team. Like, they don't have the Sugar Bowl trophy is gone. There's no acknowledgement of that team, in the Woody Hayes or in the program or anywhere. And like, we still have our rings and stuff, but it's a lot like the 99 Final Four basketball team. Like, all those banners are gone. Like, so I mean, it might not, you still have the memories, but yeah, it's like, it's nice to be recognized like in eternity, because, in 50 years when, we're all gone, like, they're not going to remember, no one's going to remember anything about that team. They're just going to say, oh, it was just a vacated team that's a goner, and nobody really knows the stuff behind it. So I don't know. I think that vacating wins it's painful for the team. Again, you can shield it and say, oh, well, we were there and we experienced it and whatever. But I think that that's a crock. Like, if my senior year would have gotten vacated in '07, like, I don't know if I'd be devastated, but I would be, I'd be upset if all of the games that we won were stricken from the legacy. And, it's like Jim Tressel doesn't have that last Michigan win on his record, which I think is a crock. So I don't know. I think that vacating, but a bowl ban is a tremendous punishment. Tremendous. And again, ask Urban Meyer. I mean, like I said, I worked for Urban Meyer. He was ready to kill Gene Smith when Gene, who's the dumbest AD in history, decided to have us play in that stupid Gator Bowl. And all of a sudden we have to, the next year when we actually have a pretty good team, we're literally not playing. We're not playing for the Big Ten. We're not playing. We couldn't play for the Big Ten title, and we also couldn't play for the national title. So it was just like, it's the strangest thing. And I hope I never see a season like that again, where, we got done beating Michigan in 2012, and like, we're in that locker room and that was it. And it was like, every other time when I beat Michigan as a player, like, it was like, okay, now we gotta chill, because we didn't have the Big Ten title game back when I played, so we had to chill for a week. They had the conference championships the next week, then we'd figure out what bowl game we're going to, and blah blah blah. But in 12, with that bowl ban, it was like, we didn't get to play the Big Ten title game, then we didn't get to play the national championship, or I think we would have given Notre Dame a great game. I think we would have beaten Notre Dame. You give Urban Meyer a month to get ready for a bowl game. Like, I've been on the other side of that. It's not fun. So I think that those bowl bans are they set the pro, and if they do a multi-year bowl ban, man, that is a monstrous like nuclear hammer, because you lose multiple years, man, especially in the transfer portal era. That roster is going to clear out fast. um, you're not going to get any good kids to come play there, because they all want to play for championships. They all want to play for titles. Like, if you can't play for a Big Ten title or a national title or a bid to the playoffs, it's basically like your entire season is just like the preseason. It's just like you're like a preseason. Every game's like a preseason NFL game, because it doesn't really mean anything. Like, you could beat, if Ohio State, if you beat Ohio State, that's great. But if Ohio State's going to the Big Ten title game, then going to the playoffs, like, it's not really that great. Again, it's kind of like, this year they beat us, but I mean, wouldn't you rather win a national championship? Yeah, I would. So I think we're 2 weeks out. I think it's going to be incredible. And again, the way that they've acted this whole way, it's what I keep saying. I was like, you can't lie to the NCAA, can't delete evidence. You're already on probation. You're second offenders. And again, like, when you go through the litany of charges that they've had, the number of show causes, we've literally never seen anything like this. Like, Nevada, is there anything even close to this? Because we went through all the show causes, the firings, the amount of movement, running before the posse got to them. I mean, is there anything even close to what these guys have done in terms of the punishments that we've already seen before this thing even starts up in 2 weeks?
No, I mean, there's nothing that's even close, and I think that's why, for people, predicting minimal punishments or lesser punishments or something, it's got to give you pause, because I mean, there's nobody that's even within 200% of what they've gotten. I mean, no, I don't, maybe even within 300 or 400%. I mean, they've had 10 separate coaching suspensions, over these issues, through these, it's hard to keep it straight. The Cheeseburger Gate one, and now the Connor Stallions one. Um, so I mean, facing six level one, I mean, six level ones is terrible. I mean, that's just got to be absolutely terrifying. So no, it would be fun. I'll have to go through the all time record book, and check every sport, because I've only checked football, but I'd like to check, has there been some rogue tennis team somewhere in the past, or some cross country team at some little college that just didn't give a hoot about the rules, and just burned the rule book, and just brought in all these transfer students or something like that? I mean, who knows? But no, nothing like this has ever been done. And you know um that's why, I think people are struggling so much to come up with the punishments, because there is no precedent. People are like, well, this has never been done before. But my counter to that is always, no one's ever cheated on the field like this. I mean, you're a student of football, Kirk. You watch as much football, played as football, all American, coach, done everything. I mean, in all your years of high school, youth football, everything. I mean, has anybody ever cheated on the field like this? I mean, can you ever, even a story that you read or something in a book or anything, have you ever read about anything like this, where there was this type of wholesale cheating going on in football?
No, and again, I've never seen. I mean, this is kind of like the Astros, or this is like a thing where it's just so obvious that they're cheating, like their face off, and it's such a humongous advantage. That's like the only thing I could come up with. Like, for me, it reminds me of like when we used to practice. Like, we would script plays against each other, like the offensive script against the defense, and like, if the defensive guys looked at the script and they knew, like, okay, we're running a 28 play or a 46 play. 46 is our signature power play. It was Jim Tressel's number one favorite play. It was called 46. Like, if they know that it's 46, and they know that it's an off tackle run to the right, like, and you're James Laurinaitis and Marcus Freeman and Larry Grant, those guys, like, you're flying over to that hole. And that's basically what it counts to. I mean, again, we would see these scripts, and like, if you know what's coming, it's it's impossible, honestly. Like, that's just my thing, is people say, well, you still got to stop it. I'm like, well, yeah, if you have three linebackers on the field and they all know that you're running right behind the right tackle, like, don't you think those linebackers are all going to go flying over there, and it's going to be a little too crowded for Beanie Wells or whoever to get through the hole? So I've never seen anything like this. And again, that's why I've studied this thing so much to the point where my eyes bleed watching Greg Schiano, James Franklin, Ryan Day, who was really, really exceptionally angry. And I've got a great source on the fact that he was angry because he might have called me. But I'm just telling you, it's something where we've never seen it before. Because it takes an exceptional amount of desperation, and an exceptional amount of, I guess, I don't want to say balls, but like an exceptional. I mean, you gotta have some like pretty insane nerve. This is the guy. You know, you guys have all seen Casino, one of the greatest movies of all time with Robert De Niro, and the dude's got the little thing on his leg and he's tapping on it, and then they take him in the back room and they beat his hand with the hammer. Well, that's Michigan. Michigan's the guy that's like, can you do it with your left hand, with your right hand? And then the hammer was coming, baby, and that's where we got it from. And that's what this is. Like, you have to be so ballsy to do something like what they did. And again, they were so just flamboyant with it, where they have the whole sideline. It wasn't like this thing was some coded thing. Like, the whole sideline is pointing up, so they're all in on it. So that's why it's crazy, because like, if I was trying to pull some caper like this, man, I would do it secret code 007. I wouldn't have every single member of the Michigan sideline pointing up in the air when I'm picking off the sign, but that's what they were. Cause again, they were just so arrogant and stupid that they didn't think they'd get caught, and they did. And it's, I think the punishment is going to fit the exceptional nature of what these guys did. I mean, Nevada, am I wrong?
Well, it's funny because the only thing that I can come up with that I think that's even, has any relevance to this would be what the Patriots did. Because the Patriots got hit, I want to say it was back in '07 for filming the Jets coaching signals, and they lost a first round pick. Now, you know how valuable a first round pick is in the NFL. I mean, a first round
Oh
pick
God.
in the NFL is incredibly valuable. Then they got hit again for deflating the footballs. I know that one, and they lost some more draft picks for that. And then they had a camera pointed at the Brown sideline, I think it was, and I know they lost like a third round pick. That was kind of an inadvertent thing. So, what would be the appropriate penalty for an organized activity that filmed 53 separate games of signals by a staff member, including having a staff member on the sideline of an opposing team in disguise wearing recording glasses? I mean, 53 first round picks. I mean, a first round pick in the NFL. I don't know what type of value you can put on that, but that is obviously in the NFL you can never like disqualify a team from going to the playoffs or anything like that. They couldn't do a
Yeah.
postseason ban with a team just because there's so many implications of that, to the broadcasting things, to their season ticket holders. I mean, there's a million things why that would never make any sense in pro football. Um, but I mean, to take away a first round pick for an isolated incident of doing it against one team, I mean, I just think that's the level of penalty that the I think, and that'll be the precedent, and I think that's what the NCAA is going to, when they're looking at this, they're going to say, hey, if it was one first round pick for doing it for one game against the Jets, what is it for 53? You got to lose all those games where you were doing it, and there's got to be some sort of perspective, punishment to keep you going. So I think it's going to be the full basket. I think that's why it's got to be multi-year postseason ban, multi-year vacation of wins, and that's why they've got to lose that national championship, because during that 2023 season, that's when Connor Stallions was on the sideline at CMU. So I think if we use the NFL as any kind of a remote precedent, that's where it would fall, and I'm probably being light in terms of my punishment, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think it's a great comparison. I think that, I mean, a first round pick is the most valuable outside of having a stone cold, like, superstar player. Like, first round picks are exceptionally valuable. I mean, obviously, when you see teams trading, and not to mention, a first round pick, it's, they get paid good money. Obviously NFL millions, big standards, but like they're not making that second contract, especially if you get a quarterback on a rookie deal. I mean, you could that's when you really have a chance to make hay, because he's not making $50 million a year yet and eating up, 1/6 of your salary cap like he does when he gets extended. Like Brock Purdy just got a huge extension, and he was making league minimum for the first 4 years, 3 years of his career, and now he's making $50 million a year. So it's like a $49 million jump, which means you got to get rid of Debo Samuel and get rid of a bunch of other guys to clear cap space so that he can fit. So first round picks that's the core to every great team. You look at the teams that win big in the NFL, they hit on their first round picks. It is what it is. So I think it's the hammer's coming. I can't wait. You can't, because it's like I've said a million times. And when you're talking, let's add up what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. These guys, not only did they cheat, and not only did they continually have this pattern of cheating. And again, this is why I don't understand why there's not a lack. The lack of institutional control is like the most obvious thing in the world at this point. When it's like, you guys did the cheeseburger gate, where they're meeting with recruits on campus during breakfast and stuff that's obviously completely illegal. And then on top of that, so you already got that strike. And then, Sharon Moore has already been suspended. He's gonna get suspended again. He's gonna get fired. It's gonna happen. But I just think that the way that you keep compounding it, and then you delete text, delete info. You're not compliant with the investigators. I mean, they literally do everything possible wrong. And I'm like, guys, like, I mean, I don't know who's giving these guys advice. And again, that's what I said 80 billion times when you talk about the Board of Regents or whoever runs this university. I'm like, at some point, man, you got to say, look, like, what are we doing? Like, let's just go take our medicine. This was stupid of us to do. Again, I don't ever want to hear about leaders and best or champions or any of that thing ever again, because they're the scumbags of the universe at this point. And again, the thing I hate is, like, could you imagine if Ohio State did this? I mean, we would have 600 members of the national media outside the Woody Hayes camping out, staking out our training table. And this is going to segue into obviously the Jim Tressel one. Because, like, when the Jim Tressel thing went down, I mean, there were media members outside of our gates every single day. And it was the most, it was, baffling. Because again, was it a big deal? Of course, it cost Jim Tressel his job. It was terrible. But it's nothing compared to the Michigan, cheating and the Spygate deal that we're getting into. So Nevada, I want to segue into this because again, it's Memorial Day. Again, I think it's the most important holiday that we have in this country. But it was the day that Jim Tressel was forced to resign by our board of trustees and everyone that stabbed him in the back. Where were you when you heard about this? How early in the morning did you hear about it? Again, you were, big. You're still huge on the message boards back then, and it's been 15 years. But you were on either Scout. I think you're on Scout then. Where were you when you heard the news? I mean, obviously there was a lot of stuff flying around. Like I was in the middle of the hurricane during it. I was in the Woody when it happened. But yeah, where were you when you heard the news about Jim Tressel being forced to resign?
Well, actually, I was on the golf course and had gotten a call, and honestly, my first thought was, well, I guess they came to terms with Urban Meyer. That literally was my first thought. It wasn't even like craziness about what was happening or anything like that. I just immediately my thought was that they couldn't. There was no way that they were moving on Jim Tressel unless they'd had Urban Meyer in the bag. And while people will always deny that, and Urban Meyer, who's a great man, will always. I wasn't called until the day after the Michigan, or whatever the saying was, and we've talked about how you can always handle that through agents or through Trace Armstrong or other people in the relationships. But that was my first thought, rightfully or wrongfully, was, "Hey, I bet you we're getting Urban Meyer." And I remember calling Bill Greene at that time, and we talked through the different things. And it seemed that seemed too good to be true, and we were dealing with the fallout of how do you fire Jim Tressel after. I think Gordon Gee had said, no, I hope he doesn't fire me. when they're asking about firing him. So, it obviously it had changed. And with Tressel, look, I'll go to my grave believing on Tressel that, first of all, that thing didn't involve that. Nothing about that scandal made Ohio State better. It didn't recruit a single player to Ohio State. It didn't. There was nothing about that that was guys that were already here selling their junk, and that's all that was. And when Tressel found out about it, I'm convinced the guy told him that they were in the middle of some sort of an FBI or some sort of um, you know, criminal investigation, and to stay out of it. And I think, and he did. And whether that's the right thing, whether that was the wrong thing, whether that's my impression of what went on or whatever it was, I just feel like, for Tressel to get a 5-year show cause for that, for signing a form saying that he believed that he wasn't aware of NCAA violations or player, then what do you get? I mean, Jim Harbaugh sitting there just lying to the face to the NCAA investigators. Hey, but you sure you don't remember meeting with this guy and having breakfast? Yep. Nope. No chance. Absolutely zero chance. Nope. Nope. No. Like, I mean, Harbaugh should get a lifetime ban. Not that it matters, but he should wear the scarlet letter of being the first guy ever to be lifetime banned from college football, because those things just aren't in the same galaxy. So, while they can't get Harbaugh, they can still get Michigan. And I'm confident Michigan's going to get theirs in the end. But sometimes good people have to kind of take the bullets, and I really feel like Tressel took the bullets for Ohio State. Terrell Pryor, who's probably not a particularly sympathetic person, but in this case, he was the bad guy who did a good thing and took it and took his punishment, and took everything that was coming to him, and never ratted on Ohio State. And for that, I'll always be grateful to those two guys. Because it helped to get us through this and get us to where we are today. So yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it was. I'll never forget, man, during spring practice when there was just a random blurb from Beano Cook, who's passed on, but he said Urban Meyer will be the head coach of Ohio State in 2012, and you guys can Google that. It came out. I don't know if it came out in April or May or when it was, but it was. I feel like it was during spring ball, because I remember reading that and I was like, damn, he sure feels sure about that he came out. And it was just like the most random thing in the world. So somebody was leaking something, and obviously you can connect the tea leaves as to who wanted Urban Meyer. So yeah, I was like you. I mean, I was still on staff, and we were still working with Luke, and like I love Luke Fickle, and I was again, we're all trying to keep everyone's jobs and keep everyone glued in and locked in, and keep the thing between the keep it on the rails. But I mean, I was like, dude, Urban Meyer's out there. He's the best coach in college football, and he wants this job. So if we run the table and win out, then maybe we got a shot. But it's like, short of that, man, it's gonna be tough sledding. And we not only did we lose Tress, but we lost Terrell. That was the thing. Like, as much as I love Tress, man, it's like, if you said, Kirk, would you rather for one season have Terrell or Tress? I'm like, well, God, if we don't have Terrell, we're gonna have Joe Bowerman and then Braxton. And Braxton was a freshman. He wasn't ready to play, and it wasn't fair for him to play. But Terrell he is the giant deodorant stick, because he made a lot of things work when we weren't real good at stuff, because he was so talented and so good. He was such a gamer. But again, I love Jim Tressel to death. That was a devastating day for me, just because he's like my dad, basically. And he's a guy that I talk to all the time and love him to death. And I had to clean his office out, which sucked. And it's like, you never in a million years would imagine that a guy that went 9-1 or 10-1 against Michigan or whatever it was, you'd be cleaning his office out after he just won the Sugar Bowl and everything else. So it sucked. But yeah, I wanted your perspective on it, because the thing that was shocking to me is, there's always smoke everywhere, but it didn't leak. Like, I was like, how in the hell is this not leaked at all? Because like I said, I told the story about, I was at the movies with my friends watching Hangover 2, and we're getting texts on Sunday night, and like, I was looking on Twitter, I was looking on like everywhere, and like there wasn't a leak of it. And I thought for sure it would be somewhere, because how it is with Nevada. You can't stop the flow of information. That's the funniest thing, like when people say, oh, well, you can't say this or you can't post this. I'm like, guys, like when there's something that's like hot, it gets to us fast. You know, we're the leaders in breaking stories, especially, and the Ohio State beat, it's not even close at this point. So when people have stuff to say, they tell us, you know, and then we decide what to do with it. 'Cause we don't go with everything, contrary to what some people think. Like, one of the artful things to doing this is like, if it's something bad, which we've gotten in the last 3 years or 4 years, like, we don't always want to go with that. In fact, we let other people go with that. But Nevada, were you surprised that that didn't break? And do you think, like, in today's age, it potentially would have broken, given how the agents have infiltrated the teams with NIL and everything? Because that was the most stunning thing in the world to me. That when it broke, it was like Sports Center, 10 a.m., breaking in from, you know, everything. Jim Tressel has, you know, been fired. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail right in the head. I think it's agents used to be verboten. Like agents could, Chris Carter, I think, lost his eligibility his senior year for signing with an agent or affiliating with an agent, and that used to be like, that was a death penalty offense. And now they all have agents, ostensibly to negotiate their NIL deals and other things like that, but they all have agents. So the agents, they're more involved with the team than they've ever been. They're more involved with the coaches. The coaches are earning big money right now. They all have agents. So, you know, and the agents know everything. The agents know everything that's going to happen. They know everything that has happened. They know why it's going to happen and when it's going to happen. So, no, I think you're exactly right. I think in today's age, with all the agents that know about stuff, I I I think their stuff would come out much quicker. Back then, you could keep a secret a little bit, but now there are no secrets in college football. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, I think that because the fact that we had, I told the story about, you know, Mike Brewster texting me, you know, and saying, why do we have a team meeting at 8 a.m. tomorrow? You know, like, we had a team workout plan for like 4 p.m. That evening, so that the kids would all get back from Florida or wherever, and you want to make sure the guys were back and ready to roll. And so, like in modern times, I couldn't believe that, like, if 100 kids got a text message that said, "Hey, we have a surprise team meeting at 8 a.m. on Memorial Day morning," that something wouldn't have gotten to somebody and they'd have said, "Well, that seems weird," and that seems kind of terrifying. Because again, a lot of you guys that have worked at certain jobs or whatever, like, if you get a surprise meeting that pops up on your calendar, it generally isn't good. I had one when I worked at a company, a few years ago, and it was like, it was like I was sitting in my office and we get a calendar invite, and the head of North America and the head of our region showed up to our office, and they fired like who the guy who was my boss. Like, they put a bullet in his head, like, right in front of us, and I was like, it was some damn, just like, he got whacked, and then they ordered his pizza, and I was like, and nobody liked the guy here. So, like, man, this is the greatest day ever. So you got rid of the guy that everybody hated, and then you ordered his pizza. I was like, I told the head of North America, I was like, man, this is amazing. Just please keep coming back and giving us a free lunch. So, Nevada, we'll get into some super chats. Any other thoughts on the Tressel thing? Because it was just a crazy day, man. And, like, you know, in the world of message boards, like, I was shocked that it didn't leak. Like, a shock of shocks. And honestly, I was shocked that you didn't have it.
Yeah, no, definitely did not have that one at all. That was something that was a little bit of a bolt from the blue. But look how, fast forward, and now he's the lieutenant governor of the state of Ohio. So, um, funny how things
Funny
work
how,
out sometimes. And it's amazing story.
well, it's funny how, like, again, and we don't have to go down the whole thing, but he got fired for, you know, the guys selling their, you know, their dumb plaques and rings and stuff that they didn't want, um and to get cars, and I'm like, and you look at where we're at now, these kids all have money, they all have cars, and it's just it's like, I don't know, it's insanity at this point. All right, got a bunch of super chats. Appreciate you guys for paying it forward as always. And Jared A. Brandon, what's up, brother? Hope you're doing great. Thanks for the 20. Thanks for being an ultra member as well. Not sure if this made the last show. I asked if we could have some sort of celebration when the punishments come down for cheat again. Love to the Scoop family and those who lost a loved one in service. Nevada OH.
I oh
I'd love to. I mean, obviously, you know, I live in Columbus, so it's super easy for me. And Nevada and I are going to have, I mean, it's going to be, I can't imagine there's There's only one better day in the history of Buckeye Scoop, and it's when we canned a bunch of ratchet employees. But this will be the number two best day when the hammer drops because I'm super excited about it. Nevada, your thoughts? Because again, that's like one I feel like we're going to be live streaming it, and it's going to be amazing when it comes down because that might set the record for the longest show that we've had. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's going to be sad though. I'm already getting melancholy about it. I'm going to miss the Michigan scandal because it's been such great fodder, such great drama, and no matter when this comes down, it'll be too soon because I'm going to miss it very much. So, but that'll definitely be a long show. That'll definitely be a fun show, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, and I think the good thing about Michigan is we know that they'll cheat again because from the Fab
Oh
Five
yeah.
to I mean they've got this litany of being cheaters and getting their banners taken down. So that's the good thing about Michigan, man, is that they're so dishonest that it's going to be an incredible run for us. D Sunny, thanks for the five. Appreciate you, my dude. He says, I watched the Ohio State Texas 2005 game and saw AJ Trapasso. I love AJ. He seemed to be famous for a punter. Is being a punter a great gig? Nevada, what are your thoughts? Is being a punter a great gig?
It's a great gig. It's not as good as being a long snapper, but definitely a great gig. And you want to have longevity in the NFL. We've talked about that many times. Get your kid to be a long snapper. They actually have rules protecting them. You can't hit them, um,
Oh.
and you just have one repetitive motion. And if you can do it, you can do it on punts. You can do it on field goals and place kicks, and make yourself, like I said, have an unbelievable living. Punting, there's a little bit more of an art to it. Punting's a little bit art. Like I could actually long snap, but punting, it's hard, man. You got to drop the ball just right and kind of get it on there. But if you can get it right, yeah, being a punter is definitely a good way to go.
Well, I think that the thing about punting, long snapping, and kicking is that it's a great gig until you screw up and then you're cut. That's the thing is like, man, if you have a bad game at one of those spots, man, they're working guys out on Tuesday and I mean, one bad game as a long snapper, you might be gone. So it's a treacherous gig. If you're great at it, it's hellacious money. I mean, Jake McQuaid was my favorite trivia question forever. Because he was the last guy from the 2006 team to still be playing in the NFL. And he literally he played last year. I mean, he's a multiple time Pro Bowler, signed a huge contract for a long snapper with the Rams and with the Cowboys. And I mean, and 99% of you had never even heard of Jake McQuaid, I bet. But you Google him and he played, 12 or 13 years in the NFL. And he was, I think he won a Super Bowl with the Rams the year that they won it. But he, nicest kid in the world. He was a backup tight end in high school. He's behind Kyle Rudolph. He was a monster. I think he actually beat Kyle Rudolph out as a senior. And that was like his claim to fame because Kyle Rudolph was a first rounder from Notre Dame, superstar tight end. But what a great kid. And I played with a guy named Patrick Manley who played for the Chicago Bears, and he came into the NFL as like a sixth or seventh round offensive guard. Uh, Became the best long snapper in the NFL, and played like 20 years in the league. And he was a super nice guy. But the thing I remembered about the long snappers and the punters and the kickers is when we would have summer practices, we'd have these OTA practices in Chicago when I played for the Bears. And OTA is a practice. They call it an organized team activity, but it's a full on practice. And we would do the punting and the kicking at the very beginning of practice. And literally, as soon as those periods were over, and again, I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but like with Lovie Smith, it was like this. Patrick Manley and Robbie Gold and our punter, I can't remember, would literally leave. They were done. Like they would walk off the field, and they would be showered up, and I mean, we would be like maybe a third of the way into practice. And I remember Manley had a Corvette, and you'd see those guys driving to the golf course. I'm not kidding. And I was like, that is the greatest gig of all time. Cause like, we're getting ready to like kill each other in practice and stressed out and trying to get through it. And those guys are literally probably through like the first 9 holes by the time we get off the practice field. So again, if you can long snap, it's the greatest gig of all time because and Manley played, like he played forever and he was the nicest guy in the world. But I always would get a tinge of like jealousy when I'd see them, they'd skip the post practice sprints and everything else. They'd be in their cars driving to the golf course, and I was like, "That's the life, baby." D Sunny, and I'll say this about Trapasso. So you asked about Adrian Trapasso. He was an incredible teammate and a great punter. The kid could party with the best of them, but he was a legit beast of a punter because he was. You got to remember when he played at Pickerington, he was a running back. So I mean, we would run these fake punts with AJ, man, and he would kill guys because they didn't. Most of the time when you see a punter, you don't expect him to be a beast, and like AJ was tough as nails, just an absolute monster. Like I loved AJ, and he broke Fickle's record. He had like 51 career starts. Fickle had that record forever. Now, obviously, it's a lot easier to break now with the playoffs. I mean, guys are starting 60 games now before they go to the league, but AJ was a great teammate, great player. And again, I loved it. And he had a crazy, I think he scored a touchdown in the Hall of Fame game when he was with the Tennessee Titans in a preseason. I was always sad that he never latched on in the regular season, like and was a consistent punter. But I mean, they snapped him the ball, and he literally like I think he ran for the first touchdown of the one NFL season when he was a rookie. So I love Trapasso, man. He was such a great kid, and just a monster. He was the secret weapon on fake punts. Descend again next for the 5 said I saw on punt returns we had Gana and Santonio back there. Do you like that more than having an additional blocker? Nevada, I'll let you go first on that. So you've talked about the double returners, but I'll let you go first on that.
Yeah, if I live to be 1,000 years old, I will not understand why you don't put two guys back. I mean, you've got one guy back, and he's got to cover the entire width of the field. What 53 and a quarter yards? I mean, it's a wide field, and especially with the way that kickers are kicking these low line drives, the rugby style kicks that bounce and kind of do that. You have two guys back, maybe they catch one. You catch one of those on in the air, and you may return it, all the way. And I'd much rather have that than an extra. I mean, I think there's about. I do not understand why they don't have it. Do not understand it. Wish Ohio State would go back to that. I think eventually they will, because I think usually with all good ideas, it comes back to that at some point in time. But yeah, I wish Ohio State would have two guys back there. I don't have any idea why they do not.
Yeah, I used to like it because obviously, you had two first round picks back there that are monsters. But the other thing that was nice is if one of the guys fielded it, he had a lead blocker right in front of him. So that first gunner that comes flying down there, get ready to kill you, like you can take some of the heat off when Santonio or Teddy would just go get in the way. Like, I don't expect him to like Lorenzo Neal it and crush him, but I mean you take some of the steam off their rundown, because again, those gunners are coming to kill you. And if you're going to try to catch it and do something with it, then all of a sudden you got to at least knock that first gunner out. So yeah, I loved playing with Santonio and Ted, and Gonzo did it in '06 because those guys, they were super creative with it. They loved doing it. And I would always root. No, there's nobody in the world that liked to punt return better than me, because that meant I didn't have to go back on the field. I could just go. I'd walk over to the thing. They'd run it back. Teddy would run it back, and then I'd just go sit back on the bench and say, "All right, we did our job. We got our 7 points." So I used to love watching Teddy. He was the best. But that's a great question, D. Sunny. I miss that. It'd be, honestly, it would be interesting with the way that they do the Aussie kick and they run sideways and do that. If anyone ever tried to do the two returner thing, if anyone ever tried to say, "Hey, this is more productive than the standard, one guy back." Jamie Coburn, thanks for the 5. Aloha from Hawaii. Aloha. I love Hawaii. I think it's been worth the wait for the hammer coming, because it's going to be epic when it does. You can, quote, bet on that. Nevada. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think that this is going to be amazing. And again, you also see the speed that the NCAA moves at when they're sending out notice of allegations to Michigan State for the Mel Tucker era. And he's been gone for, 2 or 3 years now. I think it kind of speaks volumes as to where we're at with this thing. But 2 weeks out, baby. Nevada, your thoughts? Is it going to be worth the wait for the hammer to come down on Michigan?
Well, I'll ask you a question. I mean, you live more in the social media world than I do. Was there ever in the history of the social media world, has there everything been more cringy than Yoko Ono
Oh my
writing
God.
"bet" on his Twitter? And was that like what? what in the hell was that? I mean,
I,
what was he doing?
I mean, I get you're trying to be hip and back your guys, but it's like you just don't want to paint yourself in a corner like that unless you're just dumb, which he was just dumb, you know. And again, I think that he got caught up in it, and you know, again, these you know they love the Michigan against the world thing, and you know, I mean, Michigan is like basically college football's version of P Diddy at this point. You know, it's like anyone that's really associated with him, you really got to kind of question. That's what Michigan is. They're Diddy. Yeah, so again, like I'm not painting myself in that corner, but you know, I think he got caught up in it, and he's trying to support Jim Harbaugh, and it's like, dude, Jim Harbaugh was like that was the greatest thing ever. It's like in December, you know, since you're offshore betting buck, you're telling everyone that listen, bet all the money that you have on Jim Harbaugh leaving and going to the LA Chargers. The deal is done. And this is when Michigan's people were reporting, oh, no, there's a contract getting done and they're putting final language in it and he's flying back to sign it. And in December, you're like, he's gone. It's done. Because your sources are way better than Michigan's and really Ohio State's beats on any of this stuff. But yeah, I just think that, you know, when you're that dumb, you just embarrass the entire universe. Like if our president, again, like Gordon Gee, like when he comes out and says the Jim Tressel thing, I was like, dude, you're the president of the university. Like you can't say that you hope the football coach doesn't fire you. You know, and I know he's being funny and trying to make a laugh, but it's just like that was cringeworthy. And I love Jim Tressel to death, but like you're the president, there's going to be a certain mannerism to you. And thank God he's gone, and we got Ted Carter in here now. But what were your thoughts on it? Because I just thought I don't know, it was a different deal.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of the. I mean, Yoko Ono was apparently having trouble getting approved to be the Florida guy, even though he's kind of announced himself as the next president of Florida. I'm not sure that's going to happen. A lot of it having to do with his bad judgment, and I think this displayed remarkably bad judgment that a guy would come out and say something like that, um, something so flippant, something so obviously designed at the NCAA, and kind of like flipping them off with both barrels, and that's why everything they get, there's not one part of me that feels bad for Michigan right now, not one part. That they can't, the punishment can't be hard enough for them. They can't get enough, and there's not one part of me that'll ever feel bad because they've been so arrogant through the entire process, been so dismissive of the NCAA's power, and now they're going to get it with both barrels, and couldn't happen to better guys.
Yeah. Bobby Mack, thanks for the 5. With the circumstances of this case, can they make them forfeitures instead of vacating? Never been done, but with this level, cheating hasn't been either. That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know if they've done forfeitures before. Nevada, what are your thoughts on that? Could they change it to a forfeiture? I feel like the vacating is going to be what's going to be. But what are your thoughts?
Well, you've got forfeiture, you've got no contest, and you've got vacation. I mean, I've just always heard vacation. That's what I've heard was going to be happening on this. But you know, I think again, I think the poster makes a really good point. This is without precedent, so the punishment
Hmm.
should be unprecedented as well. So I would never say never in terms of what they're going to face. I mean, we've got a $2,000 bet with Yoder on that there won't be any games vacated, like not one game, and vacated, forfeited, whatever. Look, I like my position a lot better than that position, whether it be forfeited, no contest, or something. They're gonna get some. There's no way that record from those seasons when they were actively cheated is going to stand. There's just that is not going to happen. So um, for me, vacation, forfeiture, whatever. I understand that there's some technical differences relating to the outcomes. I don't think we deserve wins in the games, but I certainly don't think we deserve losses. So, and maybe no contest is better that way. Um, because my understanding is on a vacation, they lose the win, but we keep the loss, which
Got
doesn't
it.
really seem fair. You know what I'm saying? But
No.
I think, but and maybe a no contest is better.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's fair to keep the loss, especially given the fact that they were cheating in it. But I wonder, and again, this is just something just off the top of my head. How does that affect people that had bets graded on that?
Well, just I mean, all bets are graded as final, so anything that would happen, years later, or even if there was
The
like an appeal on a
yeah,
game, they don't.
yeah,
That once they've graded a bet, say they appeal it, and 2 weeks later they decide they're going to play it over. It's not like you
yeah.
get the money back. It just
Yeah,
it's graded as
I
final,
didn't
and
think so,
that's
but
it.
is this something that like because I was like that'd be yeah, I was like there's just no way. But I mean when they cover the spread at that rate, it's like something's fishy. D Sunny, thanks for the five. Again, appreciate you, my dude. Can you give your thoughts on why Terrell Pryor seems to not get the love like others? Was it just because of the tats, or did he rub people the wrong way? Nevada, this is one of the great mysteries to Ohio State football, where Terrell Pryor is still like the scarlet letter, like redheaded stepchild, but everyone else seems to be fine and back and glorious and whatever. What are your thoughts next? Because again, like Terrell, like I wish he could come around more and do what he wants to do, but I don't know. And again, I don't know if he's ever reached out. I have no clue. And again, I talked to Terrell. I like Terrell. I saw him at when Jim Tressel got inaugurated. I saw him, told him, dude, you got to come on my show. He wants to. I got to get him, hopefully get him set up, because I haven't heard an interview from Terrell about Ohio State ever, I don't think. But what are your thoughts on Terrell? Because again, it is interesting how he's like in permanent exile, and then others are kind of making their way back to the Woody.
Well, look. Here's the really reallys. He rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, one, and two, he's not going hat in hand and going, "Oh, jolly gee, can you please take me back on the Ohio State plane? I'll be the team mascot and dress me up and thing." And I mean, he's not doing that. So now other guys that tried to burn the program down do that, and they're welcome back with open arms. So part of this is a Terrell thing. Part of this thing is an Ohio State thing, and yeah, I just think he's a weird cat. I mean, and look, there's all sorts of guys that have come through Ohio State. Good guys, bad guys, smart guys, dumb guys, guys that want to be part of the guys that want to run with the women's soccer team every day and work out at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center every day, and other guys like Chris Campbell who leave and never to be seen again. Go off into wherever they are and never ever come back. So it's just there's just no telling. But I think Pryor is clearly a guy that just wants his need or desire to keep things private or quiet work to our benefit. When everybody in the world wanted an interview with Terrell Pryor so he could dig up the dirt and throw it on Ohio State, and he wouldn't do it. Um, but now I think Ohio State's waiting for him to come hat in hand and be like, "Golly jeepers, take me back into your, suckle me at your Ohio State teat," and he's just not going to do that. And maybe he'll do it when he's older or whatever it is. But he's just kind of a strange duck.
Yeah, I mean Terrell, and plus he doesn't live here. I mean a lot of the guys that come back, I mean, they're in Columbus, so I mean, he lives in I think Pittsburgh, so it's a whole different ball of wax. And there's some guys that like I literally haven't seen since they graduated. Like a lot of guys they move to where they're from, they settle in their NFL cities. I mean they might come back once a decade, but they're not here every day all the time because. Like a lot of people eventually grow up and they stop hanging out with the Woody Hayes all the time. Because I think that it's like high school. Like I mean, you guys all went to high school, and it's like, do you still go to your every single high school football game? And it's kind of the same thing, and it's weird. I know a lot of you guys have graduated from Ohio State that watch the show or whatever, but like, are you always back at the varsity club every Thursday night? I don't know. So again, some guys they just kind of move on, and honestly, maybe Terrell's just kind of moved on. Because like I said, a lot of guys, they live all over the country now. They live, a lot of guys are in Miami, a lot of guys in Arizona, Atlanta, and it's just not a big thing. If you don't settle in Columbus, like you're probably not going to be around very much. And like I said, some of the guys that were my favorite guys, I haven't seen at all since they left. And I didn't know that when we got in, when we parted ways and graduated, and that they just disappear, but a lot of them do. And again, and that's life. You go through different stages of life, and once you've spent 700 million hours in a certain building, like I always tell people like, look, like with the Woody Hayes, it's like, I've had multiple jobs. I've played in the NFL, multiple teams. Once I was done with that job, and I count the NFL as a job, I've never gone back. I've never been like, man, you know what? I really want to go back to Hallis Hall and go walk around the hallways again and do that, or go to, my jobs I've had in the private sector. I've never been like, man, I really want to go back and sit in my desk one more time. Like, this is kind of, once I'm done, I'm done. I got too much time. I got 3 kids. I got a wife. I got a podcast. Like, I don't have time to, screw around and waste my time unless I'm working towards something like building Buckeye Scoop. So I think we got them all. Nevada, great show. Any final thoughts as we wrap this thing up?
No, just look, we're counting down the days to the Michigan thing. You're right. The best thing about this Michigan scandal is there's more NOAs to come. I absolutely don't believe that this will be the final chapter on this, but it's going to be so much fun when the Committee on Infractions hands down the final punishment, and when Michigan. I like it when right finally triumphs in the end, and in the end. Right is going to triumph on this one, and Michigan's going to get it. And I love it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be a fantastic day for Buckeye Scoop and a terrible day for our competition because they're all going to be sad that we were right and we had it first once again. With that being said, if you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate all you guys that are a huge part of the show, continuing to grow Buckeye Scoop and BuckeyeScoop.com. Please give us a follow on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. Again, even if you like to watch the show on YouTube, which is where we are exclusive to now, give us a follow on the other formats because that all helps and it's completely free. Super easy to do. It takes about 30 seconds. Type in the podcast app, type in Buckeye Scoop, click subscribe, away you go. So again, I appreciate you guys so very much. Thank you guys for all that you guys do. Happy Memorial Day. And again, thank you to our veterans who serve this country for all that you guys do, especially those of you that are abroad listening to this all over the world. Because again, when I look at our numbers, it's stunning where people are listening from, and it's amazing. So, we got another super chat. Who wants to keep this thing going? All right. Appreciate you. Oh my God, Donnie. Thank you for the 5 at the buzzer, mind you. I love the ones at the buzzer, and I'm glad that I catch them. And I want to apologize because sometimes I have missed those. If we, if there's a glitch in the software, I try to hit every super chat. Obviously, every time you guys do a super chat, I bring it up. But I apologize. I have missed some before. So if I do, I apologize. And please try to remind me the next show, and I will honor it, and I will answer it as you asked it. Again, thank you, oh my God, Donnie, for the 5. Says, Happy Memorial Day, Scoop fam. What are you excited to see from Heartline's offense this year? I am really excited to see how Brian runs the ball, because I think that's the question everybody's curious about is, Brian's really growing in the running game. And that's something that, in general, when you look at coordinators, you've got a guy that you have running game guys and you have, throw game guys. So your throwing games are your quarterbacks, receivers. Those guys want to throw the ball. Running game guys tend to be offensive linemen, running backs, those types of guys. So Brian, learned a ton in the running game from Chip Kelly. I think that's the greatest year of his life, was having Chip in the building to learn a lot of his concepts, because Chip is a mastermind at running the football. So I think that it'll be exciting to see what does Brian believe in as an offensive coordinator in the running game, because even though it's a team effort and all the like, it still is going to be Brian making the call on game day. So it'll be interesting to see who he features. I think James Peoples going to have a monster year this year. I think Julian Sain's going to do a great job in the RPO game. So that is what I'm looking forward to. Again, I appreciate that super chat right at the buzzer, and I hope that you have a great rest of your Memorial Day. So with that being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow night, 7:10. I hope you guys have a great night. Go Bucks.